Hey guys, Gregory here, and today we're going to be talking about how to change chords quickly on the guitar. Now it's important before you get into this lesson that you spend some time memorizing chords already, because if you haven't actually memorized the chords, it's going to make the process a lot harder. Alright, the second thing is I have a video where I teach you how to hold chords properly. That's actually going to help quite a bit too. So if you haven't seen that video already, I do suggest that you go check it out. But if you have, let's go to the fretboard. Okay, so tip number one. Once we have our chords memorized, we want to practice changing the chords by first moving one finger and then trying to get to the rest of the chord. So I'm going to explain this using two chords, G and D major. Okay, so between G major to D major, we need to get the first finger to the second fret third string, middle finger to the second fret first string, and third finger to the third fret second string. Now what usually happens is, as beginners, we tend to try to think of all the fingers where they have to go all at once, and that can be quite confusing if you're now starting. So if we were to just focus on one finger, let's say the first finger moving from the fifth string to the third string, you would find that that's not very difficult to do, to get one finger there quickly. Okay, and once we have one finger down, the muscle memory tends to kick in, and you would find that making the rest of the chord is not as difficult from here on out. So that's your first tip. Practice starting with one finger first and then the rest of the fingers. Tip number two, we want to practice getting our hands into the right position first before putting our fingers down. So I'll use G major and C major as an example. Now it would really help to go over the video I did on how to hold chords, because that really helps with this tip here. So if we were to look at G major, there's a particular angle that the hand must have for it to feel comfortable. And we could kind of see that by the space between the frets, the neck here, and my palm is quite open. But to make a C, that closes in quite a bit, because what that does is that helps the third finger to reach the fifth string comfortably. Okay, so the angle from G to C is quite different. Okay, so when doing a change like this, you want to practice quickly getting into that position and then trying to get your fingers onto the chord after. Okay, and G and C is a good example of this because the angle is so different between the two chords. So get into position and then get your fingers down. Okay, not all chord changes are going to be like this. G to E minor, the angle is quite similar between these two chords, but another change like G and A minor is kind of similar. Try to get your hand into this angle or whatever angle the chord requires, and then get your fingers down. Tip number three, if you're working on a song, try practicing the chord changes in pairs. So in other words, if the first chord change that you find in a song is G to D, then practice that alone for quite a while. Try to get really good at just going from G to D. And then maybe another chord change you might come across is G to C. So spend time doing that chord change alone for quite some time. And then try to tackle both pairs of chord changes and see if it helps. Okay, very simple, straightforward tip. Tip number four, sometimes you may come across chord changes that have fingers in common. So for example, G major and E minor, at least if you hold it like this, would have the first finger in common, and it means we don't need to take it off the fretboard to put it back on. It can stay right there. Another example is A minor to D7. The first finger is common between those two, so there's no need to take it off and put it back on the fretboard. One last one, E minor to C. The middle finger is common. Okay, so look out for those common fingerings to help you with your chord changes. And tip number five, this is the last one. It's pretty obvious actually, but it's worth mentioning. Just try to move fast. Sometimes we need to push ourselves to kind of get there faster and to get into the habit of moving faster. It would be a good idea to combine this with the first tip. So say for example, we're practicing G to C. Maybe try getting your third finger here as quickly as you could. Really try to get that finger there as fast as you could, and then the rest of the chord. Okay? It's a simple, straightforward tip, but it's worth mentioning. Okay, so that was the lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you do find it useful. If you have, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. It will help me a lot. And remember that the most important ingredient in all of this is really to practice. These tips are just tips, but you still need to actually practice doing these things for it to become useful to you. Okay? So until next time, goodbye.